I'll explain a little about my book. It's a collection of linked short stories that have recurring characters and recurring settings. Usually the West, anything west of Oklahoma. But also, there's some parts that are set in Maine, so it's really everywhere. And I'm going to do something. It's a collection of linked stories involving a young artist named Jordan Coolwater, who goes west from Oklahoma to become a sculptor. He goes to an Indian art school, which I see some familiar faces here, and one of them is my friend Dwayne Mapatis over here. He's a friend of mine that currently lives in Flagstaff, and he's a painter and an artist. And Flagstaff's one of my favorite spots to be on Earth, really. I really like it here. I like the weather and the food and the people. Okay. But I'm going to do something a little different. Most of my stories are really too long to sit there and read. So I'm going to do an excerpt, maybe 15 or 20 minutes. So I'll have to preface this one. It's a story of a young adult, young lady, young woman. I'd say she's probably about 25, 26. She's trying to get out of an abusive relationship. And she takes her boyfriend to a fair in Oklahoma City and gets him messed up on the beer tent and taking all those rides like roller coasters and stuff like that. And she's doing this on purpose. And they go to the beer tent. She goes, sit right down. I gotta go use the restroom. I'll come back with a couple of beers. But that's her plan. She's leaving, so she actually just leaves him at the fair and takes a bus to Tulsa, where she meets Jordan. And so Jordan's making one of his initial visits to her at her apartment that she got through public housing. She's basically in the projects, but she's in a much better spot. One afternoon, she brought him inside to show him her bracelets and beadwork. He sat down at the kitchen table and pulled out a little bottle of rum, getting up now and then to look out the curtains at his Corvette, because it's raining, it's about to storm, and he's in the projects. So that's why I don't like reading excerpts, because I have to explain something. But we'll fight through it. Let's sit out back, Lisa said. She made drinks in plastic cups and put the radio in the window. A storm was moving in north from Bartlesville, and every time the pink clouds lit up with lightning, the radio crackled. They sat on lawn chairs on the cement slab of patio, talking about their families. Lisa told him about the fight with her mom and how much she missed little Eric. They discovered that they both had dads who had drank all the time until Jordan's died and Lisa's finally stopped. Both their moms were smart enough to quit in their 30s. They talked about all this while drinking their mixed drinks. Lisa watched how Jordan smoked, exhaling forcefully out his nose like a cartoon of someone steaming mad. Purplish bruised clouds sailed in, and it grew chilly and dark. It rained softly at first, then tilted sideways with a blast of wind that sprayed a layer of tiny ice pellets. Jordan picked one up and popped it in his mouth. They wanted to stay outside, but gathered up their stuff when the hail started bouncing all around them like marbles. She felt his hand on her shoulder when they went in. Just then, lightning zapped a transformer across the street, a 1,000,000-to-1 shot that delivered an eruption of blue and red sparks like a fireworks show. "Whoa," they said in unison. The lights inside flickered weakly, then blinked off. Lisa ran around shutting all her windows, which were hard to get down. The one in her bedroom wouldn't close all the way, and the wind rushed through the narrow gap underneath with a spooky howl. She heard Jordan yelling something from the kitchen. It was pitch black out. She couldn't even see the highway because the street lamps were down. But when pink lightning lit up the parking lot briefly, She saw the big oak tree and back bent sideways, about to explode with its crown brushing the ground. Then the darkness descended like a drawn curtain, and all was black again. She grabbed Jordan by the hand, and they rushed in darkness down the hallway, stumbling and laughing into the bathroom where she slammed the door. She was so glad he was there with her at that moment. She hugged him tight as she could and felt his cold hands go up her shirt and back. It gave her goosebumps. She was shaking from what she didn't know and tried to bury herself inside him. They began to kiss as what sounded like an aquarium full of dimes shattered above them, then a roar like a jet skimming the roof, then abrupt silence except for the lip-lock clicking of their teeth. Lisa pulled away first, head spinning, tasting the sweet rum on his tongue. As if from underwater, she began to hear a rotating mixture of car alarms and sirens outside. It was all over in the proverbial split second. Sunlight speared through the breaking clouds while rain dripped off the eaves of the apartment in fat drops like pearls. Huge squares of roof shingles here and there made the front yard look like a quilted blanket stitched with tree bark and wet leaves. Lisa never forgot the look on Jordan's face as he stood there looking at his Corvette. A limb had caved in the roof, and a red brick had spider-webbed the windshield and lay in the passenger seat. Other than that, it was perfectly fine. A kid's trike sat on the hood, but there was no kid on it, thank God. Lisa felt sorry for him as he walked trance-like towards the car, unsure if he'd break down crying or flip out in anger. But he never lost his cool, only walked once slowly around the car with a hand on his chin, opened the trunk and got out some paintings. "Look at that rainbow," he said to her, walking inside. It made for a good story to tell everyone at the opening the next day. Hundreds showed up, dealers, other artists, curious people off the street, buyers, collectors, the homeless for the wine and cheese, someone who said he was writing an article for an Indian art magazine. There was free beer and liquor, but Jordan had his smoky green J&B bottle in back. Lisa watched him handle his fans in his sports coat and dress boots, smiling and chewing gum, listening intently to the blue hairs, signing their programs, towering over them while posing for photos. The pomade in his hair shined under the track lighting. He caught Lisa's eye and winked. She stuck out her tongue at him playfully. No one else saw. All his paintings and sculptures sold, but according to Miss Rose, that was a foregone conclusion. In spite of herself, Lisa counted it all up mentally. It had to be $10,000 or $15,000. She guessed he could afford to have the Corvette fixed. She went with him and some other artists to the lounge at the Adams Mark, where they all laughed loudly and drank like they owned the place. Jordan put the tab on his money green American Express card. When the bar closed, the crew went up to their heavily draped, cinnamon-smelling suite, where Jordan had more scotch and beer, and they told stories and jokes that Jordan tape recorded because his hero, as he called him, Elvis Little Chief, 77 years old, was there. Lisa fell asleep on the bed, and when she awoke in the morning, they were still going at it. The gallery felt like a mausoleum when Lisa went back to work. The opening and the days and weeks preceding it assumed a dreamlike quality as if it never happened. Jordan had sent her a postcard with a drawing in Prismacolor of an Indian couple wrapped in a shawl kissing underneath a tree while yellow leaves and the sun fell behind them. "I'm not very good with words, but thanks for helping with my art show. You are a very special person." He had wrapped the words around the figures with a P.S. drawn with left hand. She studied the sketch, trying to determine if the image was romantically portentous or contained hidden implications. Anyway, it made her feel good. She went back to part-time for Miss Rose, running the cash register, answering the phone, dusting off the art, or working on her beadwork. She framed Jordan's postcard and stood it on her dresser at home. She started summer school studying economics and art history, but could only get a partial grant because she had defaulted on a student loan 10 years earlier. She figured that it was one of her first lessons in economics. She had to use the copier in the library for the assignments because she couldn't afford the $150 textbooks. One night in class, while Mr. Williams was going on about international trade, she got a vibrating text message from Gloria. I saw you-know-who driving down the street. At home, Gloria told her she couldn't be 100% sure, but it looked like her ex in the black truck, the one that she escaped from. It was going real slow down the street and pulling into the various parking lots in the projects, idling, then backing out. Ha ha, he doesn't know I don't have that car anymore, Gloria said out on the porch. The red hatchback had been crushed in the tornado, but Gloria had actually come out ahead, getting an almost new one with the insurance money and using the rest for clothes. Lisa could hardly pay attention to what she was saying, though. She was so mad about Derek still trying to find her after she had started all over from square one and was seeing someone else. There was no doubt in her mind that it was his ghetto black ass lurking around again. She thought it all over and called Jordan and left a message since he never answered when he was painting. Jordan came over late the next day, driving slow in a freshly waxed graphite and blue Silverado with spinning gold rims and a supersonic vase vibrating the tinted windows. When he had said to look out for a silver Chevy, she didn't think he'd meant a freak show carnival on wheels. The vanity license plate, red race, in front was outlined in blinking red neon lights. God, she hoped he wasn't drunk already, dreading the messy business ahead he yet knew nothing of. What's up with the gangster mobile? She asked him as he walked in the door, then hugged and kissed him, nearly knocking him over. He said he was sorry he was late. He had stopped by his dopehead cousins to borrow his car and messed around and got stoned out of his mind on tie stick. She would have to drive if they were still going to Watanga because he had to wait for it to wear off, which might be tomorrow, the way he felt right now, he said. He took off his sunglasses and rubbed his eyes. His cousin had helped clear Jordan's sinuses with 2 big nose hits from a 3-pronged turkey foot joint. Jordan said it usually didn't affect him much, but this stuff must have been the real deal. Redhead sense, the cousin called it, which didn't make any sense. Jordan said he couldn't keep his balance pumping gas, feeling like the wind was going to blow him over. Never mind that he weighed 220 pounds and there was no wind. On the crosstown expressway to her place, he felt like he was sailing along normal, but when he looked at the speedometer, he was doing 30 miles an hour. He said there was such a deafening hum in his head, he had to turn the stereo all the way up just to hear the music. But Lisa told him she heard it clearly inside with all her windows closed and the TV on. That was when Lisa decided to tell him the reason she needed to go to Watanga was to get rid of an ex-boyfriend, an illiterate spray paint huffer the newspaper called the Bandana Bandit, who'd stuck up a bank 2 years ago and who, for the past 3 months, had been driving over from Oklahoma City and stalking her, drinking tall boy beers in the parking lot outside her window, a real country Negro with jacks and sledgehammers rattling in the back of his pickup. Before they left, they made love on the couch, and while doing so, she added to her mental list of places they desecrated in the apartment. Couch, recliner, dining table, wooden chair, broke that, kitchen counter, shower, bathroom sink, hallway, hammock, ripped it, patio, stairway, everywhere except the bed, it seemed. I think that's about it, don't you think? Was it a good place to stop? That was 14 minutes. Okay. Let me see if I can find that spot. Yeah. Almost. Yeah. Okay. About an hour outside Watonga on I-40, Lisa called Derek and told him she couldn't help but was thinking about him and just wanted to call and say she hoped they could still be friends. It's set up. In the passenger seat, Jordan was making faces and pointing at his mouth, acting like he was going to throw up. Well, she was saying, "Oh, I'm still thinking about you. Just wanted to call. Can we still be friends?" He's going like. Lisa stifled a laugh. On the other end of the line, Derek had taken the bait like a sucker fish, just as she knew he would. She felt guilty taking advantage of his gullible ass, but knew he would never give up looking for her. When they reached her mom's, Eric ran out of the house and jumped in Lisa's arms. Jordan shook hands with Lisa's mom and uncle, and her uncle offered him a beer. "Thank you, there is a God," Jordan said. In the kitchen, Lisa called the tribal cops and explained the situation. "If nothing else, he'll be driving around and he don't have a license," she told them, "and about 5 warrants right here in Watonga alone." She hung up. "They're right around the corner," she said. Then she called Derek and asked him where he was at. "Right up the street," Lisa announced. Lisa peeked out the drapes, and when she saw the black truck, she called the cops again. Derek parked along the street and got out, eyeballing the Silverado, and began walking to the front door. Eric looked out too and banged on the window until Lisa's mom stopped him and took him back to his room. They all stood in the kitchen looking at Derek's shadowy figure until the cops came running up, screaming for him to get down and don't move. Lisa saw about a dozen cops in 3 different types of uniforms tackle and wrestle his big black rear to the ground. Lisa had to answer a bunch of questions about harboring a fugitive to get the $10,000 federal reward money. But she said she didn't even know him when he did it, hadn't seen him in a year, and he had never lived with her. So how could she have harbored him? Honestly, if he hadn't kept showing up hassling her, she would have been perfectly content to forget he existed. I might as well finish it. There's only one paragraph left. Did I even say the title of the story is Under the Red Star of Mars? Yeah. After taxes and paying off student loans and buying her mom a van, she still had $5,000, which was about as much as the idiot stole in the first place. Maybe she'd say thanks by putting a few dollars on his prison commissary. She had to report it on her taxes, which instantly made her ineligible to stay in public housing in Tulsa. Probably the best thing to come out of the whole deal, other than Jordan asking her to marry him out there in the middle of the night while they lay on the 18th green at Roman Nose. She added that to her list, too. Looking up at the red star of Mars, she teased him, saying she would have to think about it. But she loved him, and there really was nothing to think about. Believing in her youth that she would go through it all again if she had to. That's it.